Kia ora. I'm Sean Davis, an Enterprise Advisor at Venture Taranaki, and you're joining us for another Ahead of the Curve webinar brought to you by Venture Taranaki in partnership with the Regional Business Partners Network. We've created this webinar series to bring crisp and practical advice from local experts to support your business through COVID-19. If this is the first time you're joining us, you can view a suite of webinars on a range of topics at our website. It's also important to note we continue to support thousands of enterprises across Taranaki with issuing funding that can be used towards professional advice, such as you'll be hearing from Tom today. So if you're needing support, please get in touch with us at business.taranaki.info. Now today we have Tom Schurr from Reconnect join us to give tips on how to increase your personal energy, performance and productivity in demanding times. Just before we jump into the webinar, you can use the chat box to interact with other people, attendees and the panel. And if you've got any questions, we'll get to them at the end. Can you please just pop them in the Q&A box? Cool, over to you. Thanks, Tom. And Tom, you're just on mute at the moment and your video is off. Yep, there we go.
Cheers, Sean. Technology, there we go. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be back here again with Venture Taranaki and to help out as we move through the phases of COVID. It seems like every time I'm on or talking to you, we're into a new phase, and I call this phase 3. We've been through the response, we've seen the recovery, and now what I call is the new normal that we're in, and how do we adapt? And I guess the thing that I'm seeing when I talk with many businesses, many clients out there, is people are just wondering how they can have the energy to keep their results going and sustain what they're doing, because we've actually been in a wave of activity, and that just seems to be sort of not stopping, it's unrelenting at the moment. And so most people, personal and business energy is starting to waver. And so I guess that's why we're here today, to sort of arm you with the awareness on where you're at and possibly where your business is at right now, and to just give a simple, effective and repeatable framework to help renew and build your energy and results. So into the presentation we go. But first, I guess I always start off with why listen to me. You know, if anyone searched me, you'd see possibly that I run an accounting business, but also I am a certified health coach through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. I'm a qualified holistic lifestyle coach and integrative movement specialist through the CHEK Institute. And then also, yes, I am a co-owner of a medium-sized accounting and business advisory service, so doing a lot of business coaching, working with individuals on their business and on themselves. But most importantly for me now, I am the founder of Reconnect, which is a holistic business coaching service aimed at basically understanding the individual and their business, and realizing that for the reality for most small business owners is that the two are interconnected and you can't separate them. So it's how do we actually maximize both to reconnect to your health, then also reconnect that health back into your business to get maximum results. And then also too, I guess I'm the father of 3 children too, so I know what these busy demands are and how that affects you. And I was talking to Sean earlier too. My 3-year-old reminded me that last night when she was up quite a bit through the night, which is always the way when you've got something important to do in the morning. But into the thought of the day, and this is quite wordy, but bear with me here. So health is an honest willingness to engage your body-mind so that you engage body-mind challenges in life as an integral process of creating and living your dreams and accomplishing your goals and objectives. And that's from Paul Chek through the Institute I've trained through. And what that means to me is health, and then also business health and performance, isn't about perfection, because that's just an illusion and often too used as just a tool to procrastinate on not addressing this challenge. What a healthy person or business owner or business leader does is they engage in these challenges, and they have the energy to engage in these challenges as they arise. So really it's the process of engaging these challenges and striving for improvement that's important through this. It's not where you are, it's just really engaging in that, being aware and knowing where you want to get to and having the energy to overcome the challenges. And before today's learning outcomes, and especially with Mental Health Week coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and with Venture Taranaki's event, that I'd encourage you to get those last tickets there if you're on this call. To that, I reflected on, in 2019, Xero put out a small business wellbeing report in conjunction with the Mental Health Foundation. And it's quite interesting looking at some of the stats from that, basically, because that was a time that I felt things were ticking along pretty well. It was the pre-COVID era. Small business was going pretty well. It's always, challenging, but going pretty well. And also the farming side also was coming into a bit of a purple patch too through their recovery. But even then, some of the stats were interesting. It said there 39% of small business owners said running a small business had affected their health. 48% said that having a happy, thriving team led to increased productivity. Yet on the flip side, 40% of survey respondents, and this is over 1,000 people, didn't feel responsible for their team well-being, which I find quite interesting. Maybe they were the small business owners of just sole employees. But only 1/3 as well felt their staff would benefit from improved well-being, whereas I believe that anyone on this call and anyone I talk to knows that well-being, your well-being underpins your business well-being, your family well-being. So I'd question why that wasn't 100%. But interestingly too, only 16% have regular team building activities. And the main barriers are really just the general busyness that we experience, other priorities blocking the time, but also from what I feel is not having a language or the confidence to talk about these things in the workplace, or a framework to talk about that safely within the team. Whereas now we need to really put that to the forefront because we know it's so important for not only just healthy employees, but also a healthy business is founded by that. So today I aim to not only talk about how to manage your energy through these challenging times, but overview just a simple 1, 2, 3, 4 system to get the results you desire. And that's personally and in business, you can use that framework. And then I'll go into the 6 foundational principles for mastering your energy. And hopefully, I've got a bit to get through, but hopefully there'll be time for Q&A at the end. So just quickly, a little bit of a refresher on the first webinar, and I do hope for anyone wanting to understand a bit of the science of why energy is so important to go back and listen to that. But basically, we are energy, we are essentially a bio battery. Our business is the same. But often too, we're not really aware, or we don't see the signs and symptoms of our level of charge until possibly it's too late, or we end up being, in that rut, or we get sick. So it's trying to just increase awareness and charge earlier. So, but often it's the unseen, unweighable, unmeasurable that's impacting the tangible results we're getting. So in the middle is the battery. The level of charge that you get in the green obviously is, well, I call them the superhumans we see, the flow-driven innovators, the creative, playful, the Tony Robbins of the world is who I immediately think of. But what I think is, unless you've got that army of resources and infinite funds, what I aim to get to is that 80% level of charge. And I think that's realistic for everyone with these, family demands, work demands that we have in our normal lives. And that's exceptional well-being and mental clarity. And we all know that state when we're there, but often it's, do we realize when we're not there? And so as we get down 70%, actually we start to lose homeostasis, or the biological definition of energy is that ability to maintain control. And that's just where the minor stress, anxiety and niggles come in, but feels like it's manageable. A little bit lower is probably where we do see it, getting by the 60%, and that's the mental fog, or the key thing in business as a business leader is that indecision. You're not able to make the decisions, and the ability to cope with those challenges sort of starting to waver. And, we start to prop ourselves up with the caffeine, sugar cycle, those sort of things just to get through the day. And then also, personally, it might be the paycheck to paycheck sort of worries, which, sort of want to avoid. And then as you move down, obviously towards 40 is where those disease processes start to kick in. But often we won't even see those either. We're trying to catch them probably around 60% because, heart disease, cancer, etc. Unless you're genetically very unlucky, those take a lot of time and work towards. It usually takes about 15 to 20 years for heart disease to show up, but the early signs are there. And so I'm not trying to scare anyone with that, but I think that's an amazing opportunity to actually start steering ourselves back, charging the battery, moving away from disease to that exceptional well-being. So on the left-hand side are probably the things, the symptoms that we see, and these are the ones we could probably grab earlier just to see where we're at. And it's the overwork, which many of us are feeling and experiencing now. It seems like professions have had their wave. Now it's the small business owners and the tradies that are just really going, geez, how do I keep this going up till Christmas, needing like they need a deep break? There'll be things like mainly the lack of desire to exercise, diet, skipping meals, big one for me, skipping meals when I just get busy. Water, so important, I'll talk about that later. Just getting into that caffeine sugar cycle. The financial stress, which is very real. Stats NZ just released a survey saying 185,000 New Zealanders expect their job to be under pressure in the next year. And so I just say, well, the key for that is actually charging yourself up so you can actually bring that energy to the business to ensure the best chance of the business performance and flourishing through this period, not just trying to hang on for survival. And then creative outlook, and that's just really doing things you enjoy at work or outside of work. And sleep is a massive one, which we'll talk about that too. But all I'd ask for anyone is just, this is a seminar about awareness, and just mark down where you are in that battery right now. And I always say with any question out of 10, no one's allowed to choose a 7 out of 10. Reason why is because that's where we naturally default to, is the sort of okay. If you had to choose, say if you were going to choose that 7 out of 10, take that out and you've got to either choose a 6 or an 8, and that'll probably give you a clue of which way you're tracking and what decisions you need to make and what you need to do to build that energy. Or if things are ticking along well and you are at that 8, then really to me it's, as a leader, and we're all leaders, it's how do you share that with your team, your family, etc., to make sure you're being that high tide rising all the boats around you. Now quickly, the business has a battery as well, and often too, you are your business and small business, and they're mirrored. Your results in businesses are mirrored by your personal energy. And so when we line these two up, you'll see that many of the symptoms, whether it's that 80% charge, really purpose-driven business, which has that mental clarity or the business clarity of the purpose, the goals, where they're heading, how they communicate, versus the 60% getting by. And that's where I feel a lot of businesses are still in that mode. And it's just like, how do we lift you up to there? And then as you go down the charge, yes, more action is needed to lift you, but often you don't have the energy at 40%. And that's probably where you do need to reach out for help with those people like or trust, or talk to, in business, talk to venture taranaki. And also, on the wellbeing side, reach out to get someone with the energy to help you build your own until you can self-manage. So really important concept, but I'll go into that a lot more in the first webinar. So it's a long way of saying this is where I wanted to begin the webinar, really, is you really need to optimize your energy through this period, because you're 50% of every relationship or every exchange that you enter into. And so if you swap out the others for there, and if you substitute in work, business, family, community, hobbies, whatever it is, you realize that with that energy exchange, you really need to be making sure you're maximizing your energy to be able to give to those things. And then also when you flip it and you go, what are you pulling your energy in from? So from the red back to you, you're drawing your energy from the outside world. So where are you sourcing your energy from? What's the quantity and quality of that energy you're bringing in? Is that actually gaining or draining yourself? So really important. And you cannot give what you don't have in terms of energy. So that's why we need to build it. And the motto of Reconnect is that we want you to be able to take all of yourself to work, and then also bring all of yourself back home again. And I use the front door test, before you walk in the door at work, check in with yourself. And then also when you open that front door at work, the energy collectively, what it's like. And so what can you do to help build that? Well, hopefully it is at a really good level. And then also too, coming back home, before you walk in that door, having the energy to not only open the door, but then see what the family energy is like and how we build that. So the pathway, the 1, 2, 3, 4 system, and it is a really simple system that I use in my coaching, personal or business coaching, of how we go about setting up a framework for success. And I'll mirror the two as I go through them, but this webinar is about the personal well-being. But when I talk about the one love, it's really, what is that dream or goal that you're driving towards? What is that North Star that you're focusing yourself on? In business, we normally phrase it as your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal. Similar thing. Then we just balance the energy in or energy out, the two forces, to make sure we're balanced and moving towards that dream or goal. In business, that's the classic, what are your strengths or weaknesses, or your SWOT analysis, to make sure we're balancing that, to make sure we're moving our business towards that goal and making sure it's sustainable going forward. 3 choices is the same. We have optimal, suboptimal, and then indifference, which I'll go through. No such thing as a wrong decision, only learning opportunities. And then your 4 doctors, which I'll also explain with, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Diet, Dr. Happiness, and Dr. Movement, all aimed at empowering yourself. So you don't actually have to see the doctor with the white coat. It's more trying to avoid that. Yes, it's going to be important at times, unavoidable, but the more you work with these doctors and yourself and the wisdom within, the more that you'll actually be able to self-manage. And then in business, it's the 4 pillars: time, mind, money, and vitality. So time is, how do you want to spend your time within your business and making sure you've got enough business for actually growing your business and for back home. Mind, where do you want to engage in your business as well, and what stress are you trying to avoid or eliminate. Money is like happiness. It's the oxygen of your business, the cash flow, making sure there's sufficient amount of that to fuel not only your business, but your personal life and dreams. And then vitality is the movement of how we go after that. So we always start with 1, and that's the importance to have a dream or goal. And it's just something to focus and energize ourselves towards. And now often too, when we're in this environment where it feels really like it's reactive, it's important to get back and be proactive. Now, the key thing too, when I talk about goals, is we make sure, yes, in business, it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. We might have big goals for ourselves, but right now we need to actually qualify the dream and shorten it up so it's actually somewhere in the future that we could actually get to. And I always say it's 30 days to 90 days is the maximum time frame that you want to actually have your goal broken down into, so it becomes real and achievable, and that you can take the action to actually go ahead and build momentum. It's never a straight line, hopefully not as curvy as the path at the top, but yeah, it's about moving towards it, knowing where you are and where you want to get to. And often too, if you're really struggling at the moment and you're just like, well, I don't know what that goal is, the easiest process to go then is, instead of the dream, what's your nightmare? What is actually keeping you awake up at night? Or what's your biggest concern that if we were to eliminate that, then you'd actually feel great? So it might be just not having the energy. It might be for some, geez, the stress has caused me to gain a bit of weight. I want to lose, say, 5 kilos by Christmas, whatever it is. Or in business, I'm worried about my cash flow. So the opposite of that would be having great cash flow. You flip that and then you can start to break it down. And that just really focuses you on where you want to head. If you don't have that, you don't really know what actions to take in your business. The next one is just balancing the 2 forces, or what I call understanding nature or your nature. And really it's about in the middle, the big yin yang thing for the personal is just, are you drawing enough energy in the anabolic side to build you up to then meet the demands that you've got, the catabolic side of it. So it's again getting the balance to actually go towards your dreams. And you might know if you're starting to run out of energy and you find yourself, instead of saying, oh, I wish I had more time, but it's like, I just don't have the energy for that, then that realizes that we're out of balance a little bit. And then as I quickly move around the 4 doctors, how they relate, but really it's about the elements. We start now, and we've got spring has just come to us in terms of the season change outside. As I look out, I'm seeing green shoots. So that's where we spring to life. We breathe air into what we're wanting to do, and it's the time for planning and thinking. So that's why this is a great time in September before the Christmas rush, that we're actually, I guess, really conscious, or deciding what we want to focus on, what we want to look at through. And then from there, the planning, we actually move towards the summer, which is the fire element, the doing. We really use up the primary hormones and we're taking action. Now, both of those are the ones that use energy out. So we need to also make sure as we move around, as we move back to the top left with Dr. Diet, which is the autumn period where things start to slow down. We notice the change. It's about the sustenance and also celebrating and reflecting what we've gone through. So really important that we're taking time out to do that and reflecting on what we've got. And then it helps us with the planning as we move back around. And then Dr. Quiet is about that winter period, having a little bit of rest. It's represented by the water, the cooling element that really just settles the system down and balances out that fire. Now, what I feel though, for many small businesses, is we've been in with this COVID response and recovery, a perpetual spring and summer sort of action. And so we've been burning up a lot of resources, we've been a lot of heat in the system. And so really it's how do we now, if we're running out of energy, bring in the right element, they don't have to be in proportion, but in the right element, bring in the sustenance we need, and just that little bit of rest reflection to make sure that we can continue to build through this next period of the new normal and actually into the spring summer period that we are facing. And so that's on a macro scale of the seasons, and perfect timing now with the start of spring. But what I really want people to understand is that you actually have the 4 seasons in a day as well. You wake up, breathe life into your day. Are you doing that with intent? Then you get after your day, but then also the nice transition. Are we allowing ourselves the nice transition out of work into home, where we can sort of reflect, rest, and bring in the right sustenance, and then also getting the right amount of rest. And I'll give you strategies for that as we go forward. So really important. And together, the 4 elements create chi, or which is, steam or actually energy. So we need to balance them all. Now, also with the 2 forces, balancing the 3 primary hormones, which is really important for most people in modern stressful lives and jobs. Most of us would understand if we look at the top, adrenaline, and that is, the flight, fright response or freeze. And that's also too, like the early symptoms are we're getting some little bit of cognitive dysregulation, any dysregulation or adrenal fatigue. And that's the constant stress or loads coming on us, whether perceived or real, and also from what we're taking in, where we're sourcing that energy, whether it's, stuff that sustains us or it's short-term things to get us through, like coffee, sugar, etc. Then that, when it's out of balance, cortisol needs to rise to address that insulin, the adrenaline, and to start taking that out of the body. Now, cortisol is really important. All these are called 3 primary hormones because without them we die. So it's really important because that builds all our hormones and actually allows us to actually get things done. But when it's chronic and elevated and adrenaline's elevated, we get a term called the pregnenolone steal. And all that cortisol goes to just eliminating the excess adrenaline, and we don't actually build those hormones that actually look after our body and our mind so we can get after things. And the science here, inflammation, a little bit harder to tell unless you sort of, are really aware of what that looks like for you and your body. Mood dysregulation, you might have family or friends that can really get that across in a nice way. A little bit harder to see when you're in the mix of it. But especially for guys and the people that I coach, it's that achy joint starting to creep in. You ache, and we're not meant to ache. Like, our body is not meant to feel sore and tired. So that's a big one, just to know if you have excess cortisol. And I test all my clients or execs that I put through my program on a 24-hour cortisol rhythm just to see where they're at. And then finally, insulin is so important, and this is one that really, again, we need it, because without enough insulin, we'll go into a coma. And often too, that's what wakes us up at night. It's not the need to go for a pee, but actually it's we've had the hyper insulin response from maybe too much sugar, and then we get the drop, and that's just where there's not enough blood sugar. So you'll get woken up to release a little bit of cortisol, not needing to pee, but then you'll be like, oh, I need to pee. So maybe just be aware of, is it just what you're doing earlier in the day that's disrupting your sleep? And the reality is that we only need 5 to 10 grams of sugar or glucose in our blood at any given time. So it's not actually much. It's a really fine-tuned system. And a typical can of Coke is nearly 10 teaspoons, so over 40 grams of sugar. So we just got to be careful of what we're doing to our body and how we're doing it, and the impact and how that gets expressed. And that is insulin too. When you become insulin resistant, leads to that weight gain over time, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and Alzheimer's is really just type 3 diabetes. So again, it's trying to catch these things earlier and moving back into harmony. So the 3 choices really quickly. Optimal, and that's something that balances the 2 forces, our system, and moves us towards our goal. And we all know what flow feels like. with diet, nutrition, and then just mentally. Suboptimal, and that's where I call it, it's the field of growth, because it gives us so much feedback. If we make a decision and it doesn't balance us, we know what that looks like and feels like, but are we aware enough to grab that and make a different decision to actually make the optimal decision to move us towards the goal? And then down at the bottom, and this is one that I just want to just make a really important point on, is that there's two applications of doing nothing or indifference. Doing nothing is actually positive. It's when we don't have the energy on board. And so we call a timeout, basically. It's doing the adult thing. It's, I don't have the energy or the information to actually interact with that. I'm going to call a timeout, build the resources, and then re-engage. And that's the perfect thing to do. But hopefully that's, you know, not a huge length of time that it takes you to get those resources or build the energy. If it's taking longer and longer, maybe it's time to do a different course of action or reach out for some help. But the danger sign is indifference, and that's in business or in life. If we start to actually disconnect, where we just sort of give up, we stop caring, that's scary, because then instead of recharging our battery, we actually charge that death force off our business or off ourselves, and that's where the disease risk comes out. So if you're ever feeling that indifference, it is time to reach out, like I say, to those people you know, like, or trust, or talk to Venture Taranaki or someone about it to get the support that is there for you to get going and get you back charged. Now, quickly, the 4 doctors. This is ancient wisdom from Hippocrates, who lived sort of 460 BC, was born, he's the father of modern medicine, lived till he was 90, which is exceptional back then. And again, he was like, he only had 3 doctors, and he said the balance of them with effective management is all you need for health or well-being. The 4th one, movement, was added later, because back then movement wasn't an issue. Life was movement. I mean, everything you did was constant movement, and enough to keep us healthy and pump the systems, etc. I'll just quickly go through it, and just as I do, if one of those jumps out at you, it might be a good one of where to start directing your attention and action. And bear with me, those definitions are from Hippocrates, so some of the language is a little bit old school, but his words that I don't want to, you know, bastardize. So Dr. Happiness, his definition was: the happiness of man and being content is when he is a labour of love, acting with purpose and meaning. So to me, that's that North Star, having something to focus on and doing something that makes your heart sing on a daily or weekly basis, inside or outside work, and also protecting that, put that in your calendar and making sure you do it. Dr. Diet, when you feed man good nutrition, it fuels the body and mind towards its mission and purpose. So for me, that charges the bio battery and gets you going towards your goal. Dr. Quiet, give man enough time to rest, self-reflect, contemplate and consider who he is and what his actions create, and he will be able to self-direct. So we know what we should be doing if we allow ourselves to sit quietly and reflect and chart the next course of action, simple steps, and obviously movement, not an issue back then, but so important just for health, mental health, physical health, and also the movement of our mind and thoughts as well. Are we in control of that as well and choosing what to focus on? So in summary, health is really a matter of balance. You have the 4 doctors, which is like the stool that supports you in life. Dr. Happy being the chief physician, supported by the other doctors. And now I'll get into the 6 foundation principles, which I describe as basically the wheel of life that supports you in the speed towards which you can go towards your goals. And like a wheel, you need to have these in balance. That balance is always changing and needing tuning. But if you're aware of these foundation principles, then you can continually balance yourself to get the best results possible. So principle 1, thoughts and attitude. These are a hierarchy, and I put these 6 principles in the order of importance. In saying that though, thoughts and actions are really the hardest to address, because most of these, it's the unweighable, unmeasurable that's affecting the tangible in terms of how we take action. And a lot of this it's the tip of the iceberg of what we actually see. A lot sits deeper, and so usually in the coaching programs, we'll actually start to untangle these. But I guess for quick tips, it's really what can we bring to the surface, or how can we direct our thoughts? So having that goal, having the dream is so important, because it channels your energy and your thoughts, and also sifts out the stuff that aren't in alignment to that. So you can start to filter out the noise of the world, and there's so much at the moment in the mainstream media, etc., and really focus and bring towards you what you actually want to create. Other tips, I did a few more tips in the first webinar, but it's about setting the focus. So you might want to use single priority each day rather than priorities, just one, and just get that done. Choose eat your frog early, they say, and use ultradian rhythms, which are in that first webinar. And then also a journal is just such a good tool for self-awareness. You may just do it for food and mood. So out of 10, you know, what did you eat and when, and how do you feel out of 10? How does that affect you? That's probably just a good place to start. And then you can extend that out for a little bit of gratitude or whatever's out there that you like and use. A lot of time management techniques out there too. So that's thoughts and attitudes. It's about trying to bring to the surface and direct. Breathing. So yeah, COVID friendly breathing here, but this is so important because you can actually control your state and use your breath to actually help you achieve the results you want. So again, we call it buying energy for free, and you can actually use that instead of a coffee or whatever to actually energize yourself. So a couple of key techniques is either the box breathing, which you can Google, and that's just you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4, out for 4, and then hold it exhaled for 4 seconds. And so it's like you're breathing in a box, if you look at that pattern, and that really sets you back into a relaxed state of mind. Or my favorite is a 4, 6, 8. So in for 4, hold for 6 seconds, and then out for 8 seconds. And that really gets you back into a relaxed state. 2 to 5 minutes, like literally before any meeting, to disconnect and then reconnect between meetings. As I transition, I'll use a couple of minutes of breath work. I even used it before this webinar just to make sure my system was getting relaxed. So a lot of ways you can bring that in, but I'd say schedule these things at the start of your day is really important, just to experiment with and set up your day really well. But then also, or at the end of the day, just to make sure you're getting relaxed before bed. And then also the alternate nostril breathing for actually getting into a creative state of mind. So breath work, really important, and hopefully that's given you some places to go or look at. Hydration, so important. And for anyone, I don't tend to like to give direct advice, but if I was to suggest something, if there was one thing you're going to start with out of this webinar, hydration is so important because it's your 2 reasons, I guess. It's your chief conductor of energy. Water in an electrical circuit is so important. And also in the modern lifestyle, the best solution for the pollution we face is to dilute it through good water, help your kidneys, etc., flush through these things. Key thing here is quality and quantity, which I talked about in the first webinar, but it's your body weight times 0.033 litres. So for a 85 kilo man, it's about 2.8 litres, and say a 65 kilo lady, it's about 2.1 litres a day, which seems like a lot, but if you're adding a little bit of sea salt, you actually absorb the water. It's not just going straight through you. So that's such an important place to start. And often when you do this, it just reduces the need for the coffee or the sugar, etc., because you feel like you have the energy. You get home and you're not sore, you're not aching, you're not tired. So that's a great place to start. Principle 4, nutrition. And no, it's not just kale smoothies, thank God. Otherwise I'd really struggle. But it's about, yes, bringing in good, unprocessed, minimally processed food, trying to eat with the seasons, variety of colours. There's so much. This could be a couple of days talk, but it's understanding what your body does well with, just being aware of the choices, and the journal will help that. But the choices, and if I was to say one thing, it's eliminating the 4 white devils. So that's the processed dairy, the processed sugar, and the processed flour. And we call them the white oils, basically the refined seed oils like the canola, the sunflower oils, etc., the stuff in the white bottles at the supermarket, and trying to substitute that for healthier options. But really by just, doing the simple things that we probably know we should be doing, we know our body likes, really important, and how we start the day. You know, a little bit of protein and fat for many people really helps tide their energy levels, probably better than, say, the typical, say, sugar bowl, which starts off that sort of zigzagging effect. But trust your body, trust what it's telling you. And there's a lot more to go to, but understand your body is the key thing there. There's more help and content if anyone wants to reach out on that. Movement as well, and it's just important to move and being in control of the movement and understanding how that's going in relation to your balance. So just, are you in or out of balance with your movement? What's needed? Is your energy low? You're needing to bring energy in? Then it's more gentle things. Like Hippocrates said, walking is man's best friend, and it truly is. Through COVID, all I could do was walk. I was giving so much mental energy out. Walking, I'm slowly getting back into the gym work. And then once I get better, cardio is the most stressful in the system, raises the most cortisol. So just that's probably where I'll get to once I've rebuilt the system. So just understanding what feels good and right. Yes, it does cleanse the body as well, pumps. The body's a pump that needs to be moved. So just making sure you're getting out some enjoyable movement, and that's why that picture's there, because it should be enjoyable. It should fill the soul, nourish the soul as well. So it doesn't have to be an extreme exercise that's going to potentially unbalance the system, raise the cortisol, etc. if you're not ready for that. So again, understanding what feels right and just trusting that. But yeah, making sure you're getting some movement, fresh air as well, and a good way to combine these. Finally, sleep. And this is, the best performance enhancing drug out there, and it's free. And the two pictures probably summarize the tips there. The cat, so peaceful, so simple, uncluttered system. Whereas on the left, that's probably the modern exec that I look after. And it's just, if we go through the principles, your room should be pitch dark and cool. So blackout curtains, trying to get any tech out of the room. Kill your Wi-Fi at night. The EMF sort of can interrupt with your sleep. And ideally, we're trying to be going to wake up without an alarm and getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, which sounds like a lot, but it's so important. And limiting the caffeine after midday if you can, because it really disrupts, especially if you're sensitive to that. And appropriate exercise, try not to jack up the system too late in the day. Again, it's that beautiful transition of the autumn we're trying to have. So that might be actually a walk or something like that post dinner, especially with the days getting longer. So how the 4 choices affect the 4 seasons in your day. Up the top is what a normal curve looks like. We should see that nice the black line's the cortisol bump that we get, peaking around sort of 6, 7 a.m. That wakes us up and gets us going. We spring into life. Through the summer period, through the day, that slowly goes down, but we get what we want to get done. And then we have the blue autumn period, where once cortisol gets low enough, melatonin, which is our rest and restore hormone, kicks into place, and we get a nice chunk of physical repair and psychological repair. So we're ready for the next day. That's why what we do early is so important. Whereas if we look at the bottom line, this probably reflects what a normal day is for many of us. We wake up and we're woken up by our children, spring into life, get that cup of coffee to get us going. And then, so we jack it up, but also that cortisol line, the black line, keeps extending, that second or third cup of coffee as we get into the day, etc. Or that late sort of that 6 p.m. high intensity session, if we're already maxed out, extends that cortisol curve. And you'll see that the important melatonin doesn't kick in until that cortisol gets low enough. So we don't have a transition period. We might be on our emails late into the night, etc. And then our repair is so much more limited. The physical and the psychological repair are a lot more limited. And so in any given day or week, we're going to get those periods, but it's like, what's the impact of that on a repeat week to week, month to month basis? And it's how can we start to lower that black curve by being conscious and taking some activities to do that, to increase the white curve. This curve completely changed my life when I saw it, and my love-hate relationship with coffee. But it's just being aware of that, and what does your curve look like? So again, start simple. 1% improvement is about doing something simple consistently rather than trying to change too much here. 1% improvement over a year, 37 times result. 1% reduction in that box, your battery's basically empty at the end of the year. And for a business, if you just did a 1% increase in your sales, 16 months in a row, compounded, you'd actually have doubled your sales. So it's about just trying to find the lever that'll give you the biggest bang for your buck, not overwhelm yourself, and just get going. So there's quick tips here, and I won't go through them because we're starting to run out of time, and I'll try to sneak in 1 or 2 questions. But if anything on that jumps out at you, write it down, and that's your one thing to start with, your 1 or 2 things. And like that image says, it's all about just finding your happy place. And so just choose things you'll like, choose things you'll do, and don't make it a burden. So just start simple. And like I say, one foundation principle, whether it's, Water is a great one. Like I say, if you don't know where to start, that's what I would recommend. Or one doctor, if you're really stressful and, stressed out, maybe Dr. Happiness, scheduling something that's going to bring you joy and doesn't make much sense to anyone other than you. That's a good place to start. So just choose one or two things max and start to schedule it in and address that. Again, I'll be putting out a lot more content going forward from Reconnect. So just email me there to get added to that database. And most importantly, if your charge is getting low and you're losing your ability to manage yourself in your homeostasis, Venture Taranaki is there, and they've got so much support from so many different providers that they'll match you up to what's right for your business, and funding available. So you're just mad not to reach out and get their support because it's there. And then obviously if your business needs support right now and anything in this talk is resonating, yes, please reach out to me as well. I mean, I do the complimentary 1 hour catch up just to see where you or your business or both are at. I've got the 1-day strategic planning workshop to, like I say, work out that North Star and get back in control and reconnect to your business. The individual program, which is a 6-month journey to reclaim your health so you can reclaim and reconnect to the other areas of your life, your business, etc. And then the business reconnect program, where we work on improving your business and giving you back the 4 pillars: time, mind, money, and vitality from your business. And then bespoke team reconnect workshops, so we can actually make this well-being a common language that not only we're okay to talk about, but we want to talk about and make sure we're looking after our team. So thank you for that. It was a lot of awareness that I've brought. I just hope that something resonates you. Please reach out if there's anything more you want me to clarify. But Sean, I'll kick it back to you just to see if any questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that, Tom. And I emphasize on Tom's point that if your business or if you're feeling a little bit drained from COVID, or if there's anything happening, please just reach out to us and we can have a chat and see how you're going. We've got a couple of questions here. We'll start with a water one. So you talk about having a percentage of your body weight consuming in water. Can that be in other means? For example, if it was herbal teas, if you're drinking 4 of those a day, does that count, or is it just
well,
and then everything on top?
Is best, just because basically anything with a bit of color in it, whether it's tea, herbal tea, etc., coffee in particular, that actually needs to be metabolized by the system. So yes, it does give hydration, but it actually takes some I guess, energy from our system to process that. So yes, you'll be getting good hydration for sure. And it's part of your hydration plan, but water, I just say water because it is the best, because other than a little bit of sea salt, which is just minerals, it doesn't require the processing, goes directly into your cells, your system, etc., to provide you the most energy. So water is best, but yeah, nothing wrong with the herbal teas as well, but just note that just does take a little bit of energy to process. But I'm a big fan of teas. Like every afternoon I'll go to my favorite herbal tea or whatever as well. So yeah, definitely a good option, but just note that getting a good amount of quality water in as well is key as well.
Okay. And in terms of also talking about getting other stuff in there, do you recommend any supplements? I've got a 3-week-year-old kid at home, so I might need as much support as I can get.
Well, as always, I say start with the foundation principles. Try and, young kid, optimize the sleep as much as possible. Work out a plan on that one. Look at the diet, making sure you've got the things dialed and you can, your hydration, your nutrition as well. But then supplements, so individualized. But what I would say is 2 things that I take, and I'm not a clinical nutritionist, I'm more a health coach, but 2 things I take anyway for people out there: a good multivitamin, so a high quality one like the Be Pure one I do use, good outfit. And then a high quality fish oil is so important for not only your health, cellular health, but your mental health, your cognition. And so the product, I definitely take a high quality one. The product I use isn't quite available yet in New Zealand. I can distribute it, and it's got a good scientific test that we do to actually test if it's effective and see where your actual performance markers are at, which we send back to Norway. But I'd recommend, out of the ones on the market, either contact me to look at that test in the product, but probably Nordic Naturals has got a really good liquid fish oil, and Be Pure is a really good local source, New Zealand sourced, ethically processed, very low in mercury content. So that's a great one to start with. I think everyone, because of our diet, our ratios are way out of balance with where they used to be historically. So start with a really high quality fish oil and just see how you feel and perform on that. Again, be aware. And then just for the sleep, can't help myself, magnesium, like that really helps with sleep and getting you into that period. So about 60 to 90 minutes before bed, take a really good high quality magnesium and possibly a zinc. And probably a magnesium chelate is probably the best. It's quickest absorbed and best absorbed by the body. And again, that the magnesium I use is a Be Pure, again, just a good New Zealand supplier, but a really good high quality magnesium chelate would be a great one to get from your health food store.
Great. And just we're right on time now. So one last quick question. Last time you joined us, you were Work Traders, and now you're Reconnect. What's happening with the new name?
It's just aligned with what I guess the purpose of the movement or the why is for my business. And I've evolved, and the more I've understood the business, it is about reconnecting back to yourself with the things that bring you joy, your health, your energy, so that then you can connect to all things in your life, reconnect back to your business, gain control of your life. And the analogy with the logo, the 4 circles, is, you're going through a tunnel, things get serious, work, family, etc. And it's just reconnecting to what bring you the joy and getting back in control. So yeah, Reconnect just resonated so strongly. And so it was just when I came across that, and I'd written it so many times, it was just like the name had to change. I needed to evolve. And that's what this movement is about.
Great work, Tom. I love that. Hey, thank you so much for joining us again. And thank you for all of you out there joining. I'll make sure to send a recording this afternoon or first thing Monday morning. So keeping in the theme of wellbeing, and to mark Mental Health Awareness Week, which is in 2 weeks' time, our next event will be live. It's going to be at the TSB Showplace, where Jihan Kasananda, New Zealand Reporter of the Year, will be hosting Ahead of the Curve, The Power of Stories. So Jihan will be speaking of his own personal battle with depression, and will question our panel, Hayden Wanu, Al Belushi, and Campbell Matson, on their own relationships with mental health. There are only a few spots left, so please, if you're keen to head along, please go get your free ticket at our Venture Taranaki Facebook page. So you just search Ahead of the Curve there, The Power of Stories. So this event is going to be on Wednesday, the 23rd of September, and would love to see you there. So I'll make sure I send out a link to all you guys that are live here now. Thanks again for joining us, and have a lovely day. Haere rā.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.